Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Post-match Novak Djokovic versus Casper Ruud. We're going to break it down. We're going to break it down because it was an intriguing final. Before we get into it, remember to hit that like button and do subscribe if you are new. Also, leave a rating or review if you're listening or watching on a podcast platform. Thank you so much for your support. Novak Djokovic gets it done, and not only gets it done, but gets it done in straight sets against Casper Ruud, winning his 6th ATP Finals title in style, no less as well. It was the first time he'd won the ATP Finals since 2015, if I'm not mistaken, and that's surprising in itself. But what's not surprising is the way that he came out on top. Before we get into it, though, I have to say it was a tale of two sets. The first set and the second set, for me, were very different, especially in terms of how they unfolded and then also how Djokovic played. The one thing that was consistent, which I think I can talk about first, though, for Novak Djokovic, is his serve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the general patterns of play first in the match. Then I'm going to break it down set by set in terms of some of the trends, some of the key moments, and also mainly talking about patterns of play. And then I'll wrap up by giving you guys my verdict, I guess, on what the match was like and going forward what it means for both players and if it means much for both players. In set one, Djokovic hit 6 aces, second set 3, first set percentage of 72%. In the first set, 86% of first set points won, 69% first serves made in the second set, 83% of first serve points won. So very similar stats. His match stats on serve, 9 aces, 0 double faults, 71% of first serve points, first serves in, 85% of first serve points won, and 69% of second serve points won. Only lost 5 points behind his second serve. 11 out of 16, incredibly impressive. And the most impressive thing of the whole match is that he didn't have to save a single break point, didn't face a single break point on his serve. And I think that really sums up how clinical he was on serve. And it's something that he has consistently been performing at an 8 and 9 out of 10 in every single match this week, in my opinion. It's been a weapon that hasn't faded. We've seen the forehand, the backhand, the movement at times even, dip a little bit because of either a niggle or a drop in form or illness or whatever else it might be. But the serve has stayed consistent, and that proves to me as well that going and adding Goran Ivanisevic as a coach to his team as an addition was such a good decision because he is one of the best servers ever to hold a tennis racket, Goran Ivanisevic. And what he's done is he's made Djokovic so efficient when it comes to his serve, especially on the first serve. On the second serve, I think there's not many players, honestly, out there who have a very potent second serve. But if we talk about second serve points, one, it was at 69%. Now, that's a little bit misleading because we have to cater in how good he is after the delivery of the serve, right? The 1+ shot, the second, or the 1+ shot after serve, the second, the third, the fourth. He's an incredible player from the baseline. But generally, his serve is now an incredible weapon. And yes, we can give credit to Ivanisevic, and we should, because clearly he's had an impact. But the work that Djokovic has put in to not only, revolutionize his serve, but it's been quite a few years coming. It really has. And I did a segment on it with Baseline Tennis on the channel. And, the person who came on explained how since Djokovic came on tour until now, there have been some massive changes. And if you watch him when he first came onto tour, how he served compared to now, they're worlds apart. But the funniest thing about it is that he's actually got Well, a lot less moving parts. It's a lot more simple, but a lot more effective, efficient, just like Djokovic and his game. So that to me is the most consistent part, of course, of Djokovic's match in the week, for sure. Then what? Let's go into the sets because I think they're interesting. So set one was to me the more entertaining set. It was very, very close. Of course, 6-5, and then Ruud gets broken at 6-5 for Djokovic to take the set. I was disappointed because I thought we were going to get a tiebreaker, and I think the set really deserved a tiebreaker. I thought it was a pretty good set of tennis. I mean, generally, if we're talking about, you know, quality of tennis overall for the match, I mean, you know, both players had negative winners to unforced error counts. I mean, 10 and 19 for Ruud, 14 and 19 for Djokovic. But I think the first set to me was very competitive in terms, sorry, for the match, even it was 17 and 31 even for Ruud, 31 and 33 for Djokovic. So Djokovic almost equal, but not quite. And that I think is down to the fact that we're not catering in forced errors so far, and I get that, but also neither player, I think, played their best tennis overall over the match. What I think Ruud did well in the first set, though, however, was up until 6-5, I was quite impressed with his tactics. I was quite impressed with how he was behind his serve. And Djokovic similarly was very clinical because, as I said previously, he had no break points to save. So, of course, he wouldn't have had any to save in that first set. What Ruud did really well, though, is in his opening service game against Djokovic, he had to save 2 break points, and he saved them. He's not only did he save them, but then he got to juice and then got to advantage and then closed it out without any fuss. I think this week Ruud's mental game has gone up a level. I'm not going to say that it's up there with the Djokovic or Nadal, but it has gone up a level. In terms of his service games and how he handled them and managed them in that first set. And what we'll do is we'll talk about the 6-5 game in isolation because it is very, very different. It was impressive. If we look at his first set serve stats, 82% of first serves in. Incredible. This is his, sorry, set one even. I'm looking at set two. Set one. 63% of first serves made. 86% though of first serve points won. At one stage, it was at 100%. Like he hadn't lost a point behind his first serve. In the end, he lost 3 points behind his first serve. Exactly the same as Djokovic, by the way. Djokovic was 72% of first serves in, which is even more impressive. And then 86% of first serve points won, same as Ruud. And then both players, so second serve points won. Ruud, though, look at this dip, 38% of second serve points won. But for Djokovic, 75%. So let's first of all talk about Ruud and his service games and how he managed them quickly. I thought he was really good. And one thing that Ruud brings to the table is spot serving and then a big forehand strike for the shot that comes after the serve, the 1+ shot. And normally that forehand is big and he'll commit to it and he'll get himself on the front foot. Now, he did that in the first set and Djokovic struggled because there were a lot of unreturnable serves. Like he was hitting his spots. And I know against Taylor Fritz, his average was around 127 miles per hour, I want to say. It wasn't as big in the final, but he was still serving big enough, consistently enough, hitting his spots, flattening it out, backing himself. Now, when Djokovic got a sniff of a second serve, unlike Ruud, who would take a few steps back on second serve return because it's a kick serve, Djokovic was on the baseline and he was taking it early, and that's why he had success. And he won 8 out of 13 second serve return points. However, he didn't get too many to look at, honestly. And when he did, it didn't matter because Ruud would then make sure to manage the game well with first serves and close it out when it really mattered. The most impressive thing for me, though, is the fact that Ruud was very, very confident when it came to his service games. And it was almost like, in my opinion, he had this mental strength that, look, this is my service game. I should be winning this. I'm going to dominate. Now, he wasn't passive when it came to his service games. He was very proactive. As I said, the one plus shot is always got, he's always got pace, spin. He's always looking to go deep into a corner. He's not going too close to lines, but he's being calculated with his aggression, and it's normally extremely effective. He also, for me, was impressively holding his own in the backhand-to-backhand exchanges, not just in the service games, but generally. And in that first set we're talking about. And he was actually managing to drag Novak out wide on the backhand side in angles. And yes, of course, he wasn't having the lion's share and winning the lion's share of the points in that exchange, but he was winning a lot more than I would have expected. Now, Ruud's backhand has improved a hell of a lot. No doubt about that. But the fact that he was able to keep up with Djokovic in some of those points, where Djokovic has the best two-hander on tour, in my opinion, was very, very impressive, I thought. He tried to utilize the slice serve as well, Ruud, which was interesting. At times, I think it was a good tool to utilize. I think it's still a bit floaty, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But let's focus on his serve. So on his service games, very, very good. Like clutch in big moments as well. As I said, saving break points. He saved 3 out of the 4 break points that he had to face. For Djokovic, a similar story. Like a lot of unreturnables, aces, 6 in that first set as well. The one plus shot, he was trying to be proactive on the forehand. The big difference, though, in this first set, which I think won't be what I talk about in the second set, is the rallies. So there was a stat at the end of the match, and it was 26 rallies in the first set. Ruud won 15 of those, Djokovic 11. So Casper Ruud was winning the majority of the longer rallies in the first set. How's that happening? Because for me, and I'm sure for you guys listening, you're thinking, hold on, Djokovic losing long rallies? There's a few reasons why this happened. Number one, I think, and let's address this first because this was definitely the case. Djokovic was not at his best. He was making uncharacteristic errors, similar to what he did against Taylor Fritz. It wasn't as bad, I would say, but there was still some rally balls where he was trying to go cross court with a forehand or backhand. He'd go into the net, or he'd miss into the tram lines, or he'd go long down the middle. That's not like Djokovic to miss those. Yes, he will miss some per match, but it's a very small number. The fact that he was missing quite a few of those. I mean, we're talking about the first set, right? 19 unforced errors in the first set. 19 in one set. That's not really something normal to talk about when you talk about Novak Djokovic. So a lot of errors, right, for him. So that was the first point. The second point is Ruud, for me, was hitting the ball cleaner in that first and then Djokovic. He was being a lot more proactive. He was hitting through the court. These courts are very quick. And what he was doing extremely nicely was, and I mentioned it earlier, was going backhand to, when he had to go backhand to backhand, he would try and drag Djokovic out wide. Djokovic would try and go line because ordinarily he'd back himself and he'd make that, but he was going long, was going to the net, etc. And he was managing to hit a lot of into-out forehands to Djokovic. Now, Djokovic wasn't hitting the angles and hitting with as much depth as he normally would. And as I said, he wasn't timing the ball as well as we normally expect him to. And Ruud was taking advantage of that. He really was. He was being proactive in the rallies, and at times he'd even come to the net. It wasn't a huge amount in that first set. I mean, he came only 3 times, but he won 2 out of those 3 points. For Djokovic, 5 out of 8. And he also utilized the slice quite nicely for the most part, and it changed up the pace, especially into the Djokovic backhand. I know it is a little bit floated, and Djokovic, and we'll talk about in the second set, punished it more in that second set when his footwork was more on point. The into-out forehand was working a lot. But in that first set, he got away with it. It worked. He managed to break up the rhythm that Djokovic was trying to find. And we got to 5-6. And Djokovic was in there because he was serving extremely well, as was Ruud. But in those longer rallies, when we isolate that, Ruud was actually having he was coming out best. He was coming out, Djokovic was coming out second best in those rallies, in those longer rallies, which is incredible to even say out loud because you wouldn't expect that. So those are a few of the things to discuss. I think the other thing is forehand to forehand. Now Djokovic's forehand has been the best it's been the best in this tournament all week. I think on Insights it was like 9.2 average, which is ridiculous out of 10. Today it wasn't at that, and I would have been interested to see what it was. But Casper Ruud's forehand in the forehand to forehand exchanges, especially in the first set, I felt like Ruud was happy at times to go forehand to forehand and was backing himself to do so. Djokovic normally finds really incredible angles on the forehand cross. Wasn't finding them that first set, and I felt like Ruud was able to just dictate a bit more because Djokovic wasn't timing the ball as well, because he wasn't being as proactive, because he wasn't being as aggressive generally. Ruud was able to step in and then dictate himself and then play, and the point would play out how he wanted it to play out. Now, Djokovic normally is the one to dictate, and he will decide how the point plays out, but that wasn't the case in the first set. So Ruud did really well to manage the set up until that point to get himself to that stage. I think he would have been disappointed with his returning. And I'll quickly touch upon that because in the first set and the second set, generally, I mean, it obviously is very viable for the first set, but it does also apply for the second set. His returning could have been better. There were a lot of returns, I thought, where he got a racket on and he wasn't able to block it back into play, which he'll be disappointed by. The biggest thing for me, though, is the second serve return. I mean, I know he stood further back because of the kick serve and he wants to give himself more time to then hit it into play, but it's not the right move for me. It's not. He's not Rafa where he can get away with that and he can hit loopy with high topspin, deep. And even then, there's a reason why Rafa doesn't win indoor titles because that type of style doesn't work on these courts. It doesn't. Medvedev can get away with it only if he's hitting pinpoint low ground strokes over the net. But Ruud and Nadal don't do that. They don't play with very, very flat from the back of the court. So for me, Ruud needed to step in like Djokovic on the second serve, take it early on the baseline. I don't think he has the capabilities. He doesn't have the same capability as Djokovic at the moment on return to execute it as effectively. But it's something, in my opinion, that I think he should work on in the off-season because he can't expect to stand that far back on the second serve return and then not be on the back foot straight away when realistically he should be trying to look to attack an opponent's second serve, get on the front for himself and really put pressure and pile pressure onto the server. So that to me was a bit disappointing, something to work on. But that's, I'm sure he'll look at it and say, yeah, I need to do something on that. In terms of the game at 6-5, then let's isolate that quickly before I talk about the second set, because that's where Djokovic really came to life for me. The 6-5 game, so first point is a good serve. Djokovic shanks the return and it's short, but it's found its way cross court with a really, really good angle for Djokovic, that is. And Ruud is scampering to get to it, and then he tries to just slap the forehand back into play in a very awkward position, hits it into the net. Djokovic apologizes. Okay, a bit misfortune, love 15. Then Djokovic gets a net cord to open up that break point. However, when he gets the net cord, it actually sits up quite nicely for Ruud and he hits the backhand into the net. Now, the net cord, I think, disturbed him, but it shouldn't have because ironically, Djokovic got a very similar net cord in the second set and he hit a winner with a forehand down the line. Now, I get it wasn't into Ruud's forehand, it was into his backhand, but he went line, which wasn't the right choice at that point. And, I could see after he was looking to blame, the net cord, but it wasn't. And then a couple of loose points from Ruud as well just didn't help. There was a double fault at there's a double fault in there, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And a couple of loose errors, and he ended up conceding the break with, I think it was an in-to-win forehand that he could have and should have really made and probably would have been a winner or set up a winner. Instead, he blazed it long. That was disappointing, that 6-5 game, and I think he'll be disappointed himself because I thought the set generally went quite well for him, and then he was able to try and push for at least a tiebreaker, and in the end, he came undone because of some bad errors. The second set was interesting because for me, Djokovic then came into his own a little bit. At the start of the second set, it was a little bit of the more of the same, I would say. Although both players are serving really well at the start, fantastic. That's what we want to see, I guess. On these quicker courts, utilizing them, really taking advantage of them. And then Djokovic started finding a rhythm. He did. Now, he was serving first, and then he broke Ruud at 2-1. And when he broke him, it was like, okay, this is very interesting because it was 15-40, if I'm not mistaken. And he gets broken, Casper Ruud. And Djokovic he found his timing early in the second set. And as soon as he found it, it was so difficult for Ruud because the forehand started firing, the backhand on the line was firing, the into-out forehand was firing, and Ruud was struggling really to handle it. And in fact, the way that Djokovic broke early in that second set was by going into-out forehand into Ruud's backhand and saying, come on, come on, let's see what you got. Let's see if your backhand's going to hold up. Against most people, it would. But every player, every backhand has a limit. I think Ruud's limit was hit at that point. He was hitting a lot of slices, a lot of dry backhands as well. And eventually he goes into the net and you'll just think, or goes long, even, I think it was. And you're just thinking, Djokovic is just happy to pummel the weakness and say, come on, let's see what you can do. You sink or swim, and the answer was sink at that point. And from then, it was very, very clinical, I thought. Djokovic's into-out forehand was really good. There's a lot of debate about whether he should take it early onto the backhand and go cross-court or down the line rather than taking on the into-out forehand. I think it depends on the surface, personally, for me as well. But not just that, but how he's feeling. And also, I do think the into-out forehand is very effective for him. Now, his backhand is so good, so it just makes you think, why not just hit a backhand? But the fact that his forehand insight was at 9.2 this week, I think shows how much of a weapon it has become, how potent it can be. So I was glad to see him hit it, and he had a lot of success with it as well, finding good angles, a lot of topspin, really pummeling, as I said, the Ruud backhand. And then his backhand down the line just was incredible, I thought. And Djokovic started coming up with these incredible points, incredible winners from the back of the court with forehand and backhand. And it was great to witness, honestly. And Ruud, I think, just struggled from then on. And ironically, I think it was halfway or 3/4 into the second set, they showed the number of points won in rallies in the second set, and the stat was 11-5 Djokovic. So not only had he won more points in the second set, but double the amount in rallies, which is just incredible. And what it highlighted was the fact that Djokovic in that first, as I said, lacked timing, lacked kind of as much purpose as we're used to seeing. In the second set, he was flowing, and the ball was coming off his racket a lot sweeter. Not just that, but he was also looking for more angles with the into-out forehand, with the forehand cross court, and trying to look to drag Ruud out. Now, Ruud did stick with him for the most part, and I was quite impressed with how he was able to stick with someone like Djokovic in that form, but he eventually had to succumb to the pressure. Like, it was just too much. Djokovic, as soon as he broke early, there was no way back. I don't think after that for me. And first serve percentage, interestingly, for Casper. Now, we talked about how good his first serve points won was in the first set. His first serves made actually jumped up to 82%. But first serve points won only 67%. Second serve points won 25%. Now, the reason why I say 82% is because he started hitting a lot of kick serves to Djokovic. Everyone knows that Djokovic, it's mainly on a clay court, can struggle on the backhand return when it's a kick serve into there. Now, Alcaraz had a lot of success with it in Rome with it against Djokovic, and Ruud had some success today with it. But then he overused it a bit. That's the problem. And as soon as you overuse it, Djokovic punishes you. And that's what he started doing. He started punishing Ruud, and from the back of the court, he just ended up becoming the more superior player. He was dictating the points, whereas in the first set, he was getting dictated too. In the second set, he was the one dictating from the back of the court. He was the one changing direction first to go line. He was the one with the impetus, and it was a very clear shift in momentum. And winners to unforced error count for that second set, by the way, 7-12 for Ruud, 17-14 for Novak. Also came to the net more Djokovic, which is really good. 8 out of 11 points won at the net. For Ruud, only 0 out of 2, interestingly. Look, Djokovic played the second set a lot better than a lot of people might have expected after that first set, and how he was hitting the ball. But he got it done in style. A couple of nerves serving it out, but generally very, very good from Djokovic. And what I would say is that for me, Djokovic winning this title makes Australia very, very interesting. He's always going to be the favourite, I think, for Australia. And we'll talk about that more in depth, obviously, when we approach the tournament. But, God willing, everyone's fit. It's going to be an incredible tournament because there's so many top players who can compete for it. It's going to be great. And what I want to also say is an incredible performance by Djokovic, considering that, as I said, I think he's ill. He said after he was very fatigued as well. It's been a long few months, long back into the year for him after not playing a lot of tennis in the first half. For Casper Ruud, he's proved that he belongs at the top level. I keep on underestimating him. I said he wouldn't make it out of the groups. He did. I was unsure if he'd beat Rublev in the semifinals. He did, and not just beat him, but beat him convincingly. He made the final here. I wouldn't have expected that. He made the final of the US Open. Didn't expect that. Made the final of Roland Garros. Didn't expect that either, honestly. Now, he's made 3 major finals this year, 2 Grand Slams, Roland Garros, US Open, and the ATP finals. And he might go home and be really upset about it. I'm sure he will to a degree. But what he should take solace in knowing is that he lost to 3 of arguably the best players in the world right now. Nadal, and not just Nadal, but Nadal and clay. Alcaraz, who is, apart from Nadal and Djokovic, he is the player that people don't want to face. And then Djokovic on a fast indoor hard court. Djokovic is the best indoor player ever, in my opinion. So, look, he's lost to people on their favorite surfaces, and they're top players. They are the elite. So he will get there. He will look to push for a Grand Slam next year as well. and I'm sure he'll win one in his career, at least one. But for me, he keeps on proving everyone wrong. Don't sleep on him. He has improved and continues to improve. But for Djokovic, he continues to not only improve, but show everyone that he is still at the top of the game. He's here to stay, and people should fear him and don't expect him to retire anytime soon, or don't expect him to fade, because he's still there and he's still fighting. That's all from me, guys. Remember to hit that like button and do subscribe if you are new. I really do appreciate it. Also, do remember to leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Thank you so much for tuning in. We do appreciate it. Do keep an eye out for all our season reviews. We're going to be doing our QualityShot Tennis Awards with 3 other channels. It's going to be a mega video, so do check it out. And then also some separate videos with other tennis, analysts, pundits, etc. on season reviews. I'll also be doing a separate video to review the ATP finals generally, and go over what my thoughts are on how the tournament went, the players, and also what I learned from the tournament, honestly, because there were definitely some big things I learned, especially in some things that surprised me, things that I was happy to be wrong about, and things that I wasn't happy to be wrong about. So we'll go over that as well. Also, do check out our friends, The Slice. They're doing a Monday weekly newsletter called The Bagel. The link is in the description of this video. Do check that out. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. See you on the next video.